180 Ad Hoc Committee on Tourism and Houses. Can I get a roll call, please?
Judy Chabek,
Here.
Phil Neese,
Here.
Tweed Schuman, Stacy Hessel,
Here.
Chris Rusk, Gary Nathan, Matt Dale, Cheryl Treeland. I believe Cheryl's online.
Yep,
Chris
I'm here.
Caselli, Martin Hanson,
Here by Zoom.
online. Ryan Carey, Laura Rusk. You have 6.
Rebecca, are you online as well? Rebecca, are you online as well?
I admitted her, so she should be. Yes, she's there.
Rebecca, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Wait, wait.
The volume here in the courthouse.
why is it not?
Hold on one second.
It should be just coming automatically. I'm not sure why it's not coming through there. Let me text IT.
We have audio issues in the room right now, which we're trying to resolve.
Normally just does it on its own. So where could we look in here?
Please be patient a moment with us, folks. We're having some audio issues with the folks online.
How do you get back out to OSB without? Can we reduce your screen or?
Yeah, you can escape up it.
So
Not reduce.
can we get to OSB and see if there's anything on there that we could figure out?
And just right here. Computer volume, IT, B volume.
You can try. Can you hear us, Rebecca?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Coming through
Coming out
here.
of there.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know, can you see me okay?
No, we're still having issues with audio. Computer
I have
volume.
probably kind of a fuzzy background, like background noises. but-
We're gonna try to get IT in here because it's not.
They can show up if they want to get paid.
Rebecca, could you try again?
Can you hear me now?
No, it's still coming right through the computer again instead
Okay.
of the
Can you see me okay?
system. So hang tight. We're trying to get IT.
I can see Rebecca's picture and hear her. This is Cheryl.
Okay, so you guys are fine. It's our end that we're not hearing anybody from you except from this one computer.
Yeah, and I can hear Cheryl fine.
I see palm trees in the background.
Yeah.
I'd have the same thing if I was outside.
We had to be out of our house. We had to check out by 10. And I can still get Wi-Fi.
So I'm just making
outside.
sure.
So I'm kind of homeless right now, but what a great place to be homeless.
Hmm.
So-
I saw that.
Okay, there's two things actually that we're waiting on right now. One is to get the audio issue resolved with people that are online not being able to be heard in the room. And the other is we're trying to verify whether or not we want to form. And we need to get Rebecca's input for that. So. Thank you again for your patience.
All right, Rebecca, you can probably hear me.
All right, Rebecca, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. The question comes about as, is Matt Dale's position officially resigned from the email he sent? 'Cause if
Yeah,
he's not officially resigned, then we do not have a quorum. If he has officially resigned, we do have a quorum.
I mean, I think his email was pretty clear that he was resigning. And the committee doesn't have any other bylaws that would require him to take other steps. So yeah, I think he's resigned.
So we have an 11-member ad hoc committee.
Correct.
Okay. That was what we need to do, and then we're gonna wait for Alex in
That's
IT
duplicating.
right here, and he's gonna help us. Give us a
Yeah.
few minutes.
You want my chair?
General question, what is a quorum?
Hey, Jay.
Plus one?
Jay,
Yeah,
you know what? Let me, while you guys work on IT, let me check because the board rules do apply to ad hocs. So let me just double check that. Okay.
yeah, I looked at the bylaws. I didn't see anything in there that would,
For the board rules.
yeah.
Yeah, and he emailed,
There, should be
when he
fine.
was on the email as the
Got it.
chair.
What
So,
was it?
Jay's computer wasn't muted.
Oh, it's Jason.
Say that again, Rebecca?
Now we can't hear Rebecca. Rebecca, could you repeat that?
oh, sorry, are your IT issues figured out yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
looks like-
okay. Yeah, why don't you guys go ahead and proceed? I'll just take one quick look at the bylaws just to verify, the board rules, just to verify, but I say, go ahead, get started. And then if there's an issue, I'll stop you.
In that case, I'll ask everybody to stand for the pledge. Like when we do the Institute of the Flag, the United States of America, to the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna start with public comments and we'll start with the folks. Certification. I'm sorry, I skipped something here.
Certification.
Yeah.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go to public comments. We'll start with the folks in the room that have submitted some paperwork for us. Linda Zillmer, we have 3 minutes. Good morning, Linda Zillmer, resident of the village of Birchwood and property owner in the town of Edgewater, Sawyer County. I want to thank this committee if this is in fact maybe one of your last sessions for serving. I think what went well about this process was being able to hear and learn from the different departments within the county, them providing information and how tourist living houses impact what they do and their suggestions. I think it's trying to get a lot of representation on this committee. It's kind of disheartening to see that there's so many members not present. And I think 2 other voices would have added to this discussion, an experienced UDC inspector, and also somebody from the fire department that deals with fire inspections. Want to get down to this latest draft ordinance that I think structurally is the one that was presented to you last month and that you may be modifying today is probably the best draft of anything. But if you refer to the committees of jurisdiction, I hope both zoning and health and human services hold joint meetings to carry on this process. And that those committee members also look at where GAT cap is with the GAT cap 72 revisions I've attended all these meetings. I've also virtually attended all the ACAP 72 meetings. And if you see where they are headed with their updates to the administrative rules, some of the terms in this draft ordinance that you have before you today are conflicting. I mean, if it's a matter of where it's gonna be picked up in the regular ACAP 72 process, it's not a problem. But I'll just, for one example, is the ingress and egress that I think is problematic. And the other thing is where I think that this committee was limited was by outside counsel and department limitations on looking at the zoning aspects of tourist rooming houses. Some of the definitions in your ordinance or today include some of the conflicting language that's in the zoning ordinance, as well as not adequately addressing accessory dwelling units. And I think that should have been part of it. And this committee also does not seem to be forwarding a report that summarizes all the input from tourist rooming house owners, affected neighbors, and all the learnings that you have to pass on to the jurisdiction. Thank you. Jim Bassett.
Jim Bassett, 12353 Dover Fire Schaefer Road, Clear. Myself, the town board, Madam Chairman, committee members, thanks for putting up with me here for a couple of minutes. I wish I'd had more time to read this, but I could not find this on the internet. I had to get it this morning, and I spent about 10 minutes speed reading it out in the lobby. And you know something, this isn't a bad document, quite honestly. This has come a long ways from what we've tried in the past to clean this situation up. But you do have, as far as I am concerned, two glaring problems in these statements. Number one, and I understand from, spoke with Mr. Neese's line already, and he told me that the attorneys recommended not having a sign out in front of the said properties or whatever reason, I don't remember at all. You know, this is a resort, these houses, whether like it or not, they're a one house resort. And they're also a business. Every resort and every business has big signs, this way to Joe's Grocery, that way to that resort. You know something, the people who move into this country or move or buy different areas, they need to know that one of those houses in the property, in the area where they're going to purchase a home is one of these facilities. Bottom line is, and this debate could go on, bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, those houses reduce the property value quite significantly. Bottom line is there needs to be a sign out in front of that house. Nice, big, easy sign, easy to read with the number of said license, et cetera, et cetera. If there isn't, that isn't there, you could buy a house, property, a piece of property in the area that these are, not even know about it, expecting the word of mouth in the area to get it to the people. I don't see it happen. That's number one. We need a sign. Number two, as Mr. Neese pointed out, fences made with neighbors. The complaints over the years about these, this one of the strongest things we've heard is they just wander all over my property. They cut across my property. They're wearing paths in my grass going down to the lake, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Personally, I believe we need 4-foot fence, whether it be a cyclone fence, a solid board fence, doesn't make any difference. Horseshoe, 3 sides of the property, open on the area where the road access is. Good fences make good neighbors. That's my personal opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Thank you very much for your time and trouble, folks.
Thank you. Next is Benjamin Kurzweil.
Benjamin Kurzweil, 16040W, West Miami, Wisconsin. I agree with the statements that have been made before me. I think there's a lot in this and what the work committee's done that's looks really good. My two main concerns are the so-called accessory dwelling units and enforcement. Again, just so everyone's clear, any illegal building above a garage that has not had any enforcement from zoning for 10 years are now legal structures. So my concern is there are a lot of not formerly illegal structures that are now legal. And I don't really see much in this ordinance to address that situation about being able to rent that out also. That's a big concern also with the multi-dwelling development issue and the zoning changes that come through. Secondly, enforcement. It would seem that there's going to have to be a county employee full-time looking through whatever sites they have, Airbnb, VRBO, just making sure that people are not offering more occupancy for what their sentence is for. And it seems between the enforcement part of that and just searching stuff online, that's gonna be a full-time job. So I'm wondering who's gonna be doing that. And I also concur with Mr. Bassett. Even the idea of someone owning 5 lots, individual lots with 5 rentals on them, they're all kind of separated and those are businesses, they're running a business on residential properties. And if we're going to give people running commercial interests residential protections, then I agree that the residents who are near them should be made aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was pretty fun.
That was Kurt's Wild 11055 from Blue Road here with the sentence. I guess I'll start off by saying you're off to a good start. The capacity based on science and facts, very definable, quantifiable, based on the design standard for the septic system and the numbers of bedrooms. That's good. I got a couple of concerns. One of them is on the notification. There should be information 24/7 contact info for enforcement of personnel for the legal violation. And not that you call at 11 o'clock at night because something's going on and you get it. There should be contact info for the authority on that notification that goes out to the neighbor. Also, it almost looks like rather than the county, whether it's Health and Human Services or zoning or law enforcement or whoever, without full-time staff, actually going out and looking at these things even randomly, you're almost forcing the neighbors to the cops. And that causes division, dissension, and discord in what used to be quiet, peaceful, residential neighborhood. So that needs to be addressed. I think capacity for the units should also be as part of the information and notification that goes out to the neighbors. And I think the 100-foot boundary is ridiculous. That's less than 35 yards. The original 300 feet that it seems on the agenda today to be changed to 100. That's a mistake. I compromise at 200 would be at least twice as good as that 100. And then I have another concern, state statutes that resulted in this mess do empower, allow the enforcement or ruling jurisdiction municipalities to limit short-term rental occupancies to no less than 180 days per year, and they may make those 180 days consecutive. And again, that's kind of a compromise thing. In fact, I even go to 183 days a year in leap years, because then the speculator, landlord, community resort operator gets to conduct his 24/7 business for half the year, and the neighbors get to have a residential neighborhood for the other half of the year. So I think this 180-day limitation in the statutes, I don't know if it's been considered or discussed by this committee. Again, I'm late to the party here. I volunteered to serve at the outset. I'm still waiting for an answer whether I will be allowed to or not. The other thing is, over the last several years, there's been a lot of talk about problems with B&Bs and affordable housing for the workers in resort destinations. Door County, probably down in the Dells, it's on fire to be. And it's worldwide. Hawaii, Colorado, New York City, Athens, Rome, Paris, and even more recently on the shoreline cities of Australia. It's a worldwide problem. And this contributes to the affordable housing crisis that is making the news now here in the neighborhood. The volume of business and tourism has outstripped
Thank you.
our human infrastructure to service. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a sheet from Tom Stibbe, and he says he submitted a document. Is that this document?
Yes,
Would you like to speak on that?
yes.
Okay.
Good morning, my name is Tom Stibbe. I reside at 14941 W of Diamond Drive. That's like township, and I'm a full-time resident and an effective neighbor to a short-term rental. I read the latest version of the proposed ordinance. It's 22 pages, and I appreciate the work that's gone into formulating the ordinance. I have noticed when reading the document that nothing is mentioned about campfires. And you have heard a number of comments over the last year or two with the ad hoc committee about neighbors concerned about campfires. I'd like to propose language that would inject campfires into the ordinance if nothing else can mention them, and to reference state regulations regarding campfire and guidelines for safety of prevent wildfire. Also, I'm asking that when the owner is required to notify neighboring properties, that a copy of the code of conduct be given included to the notification of neighboring properties, a copy of the code of conduct that the owner is responsible for assembling for the renters. Also, I have language that speaks to how the owner shall reply and report complaints. The ordinance is directing that complaints can be given to the owner. Well, there should be a mechanism where the owner is responsible to report that to the county health officer following receiving a complaint. That renters are required to comply with the Wisconsin burning restrictions. I think it should be mentioned in the ordinance that campfires must be attended at all times, and owners shall provide tools and water for extinguishing campfires. I also wrote a paragraph about enforcement of violations, and I encourage the ad hoc committee to develop a step enforcement program for the county health officer to administer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mary Stibbe?
Mary Stibbe, 14941 W. I finally done. That's like township. I echo the comments that my husband has made. I also would like to thank the committee for their work on this and accepting the public comments. I would just voice one other concern that I don't see anything in here related to quiet times. And in the previous draft that was done, it indicated that there would the quiet hours between, 11 PM and 7 AM. I'm talking about the 2017 document. And I think the concerns that we've heard about parties and folks carrying on all night long, I think that as far as a neighboring property, there should be something in there as far as, the quiet expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak with you, Dr. Fill sheet? Come on up, state your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening all, 12064 West Gilbert Road. So I'm back again to scream into the void. That's how it kind of feels. This committee has shown bias throughout this whole process, especially when comments are made that these rentals will have 4-foot files with the sheriff's office. The fact that Matt stepped down is also another indication that this committee is biased. I would like to see somebody beyond what the Zimmer suggested, who actually owns the rental, and not the resort or motel. Okay, so I also would like to thank the committee for the work they've done. I do think that the proposed changes that were made just this last month have been helpful. I don't think it goes all the way towards where it should be, or is very understanding of the limitations that we work under with these lodging marketplaces at all. But I want to touch on some of those. The people in the audience brought up quiet hours. We also brought up quiet hours in the letter from our lawyer. We do believe that set quiet hours would be very helpful. It would give us some parameters to work with. If we gave the neighbors a reasonable amount of quiet hours, but if the complaints come in after that time, we can deal with them. If they're during the middle of the day, then it should be a little bit less serious. Campfires is a fine suggestion as well. Somebody mentioned forcing the neighbors to be cops. I do believe that this ordinance, whether it's intended or not, will be causing fights between neighbors, trespassing, bad behavior on both sides. And I don't think that there's a method that's sufficient for folks to complain. If somebody's calling them 10 times a day to complain about somebody looking at them wrong, like, or seeing the yard be on, or having music in the middle of the day for an hour. Those are reasonable things that any neighbor, long farm or short term would be doing. Okay, economic data does not support that CRH throughout property values. And we were not allowed to present on the economic data this committee when we asked, another biased decision, but that is not supported by the data. It's for the property values increasing. This ordinance still says that an owner shall be responsible for the conduct of each person using the TRS property. I think it's far too broad. I am not responsible, just like a hotel owner is not responsible for the behavior of adults within my property. I may have a rule of conduct for them, and I can take action on that, but ultimately I'm not responsible for their behavior. Parking language is conflicting here. It says that if the parking meets the local parking regulations, then it will be okay, or if it's within the site map. And then the next sentence says parking may only occur in the sites designated on the site map. So this is contradictory. If we have somebody that gets stranded on the road and if there is public parking allowed on that road for a period of time, they should be allowed to park there. Just like the other neighbors would be allowed to park there. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? I'm not state your name and address.
Ben Welnack, 16815 West County Road. Thank you for all the time you guys have put in. There's a lot of back and forth discussion. We're trying to do things without everyone here. I understand that can be an issue and appreciate the time. My concern with this whole process is the fact that we don't have a full, scale of the exact problems and, things laid out in a process of taking down all things over time. So we don't have the data to draw from this, you know, a specific, let's say a specific area is especially problematic versus another area, or find the commonalities between the bad and the good, and to compile all that data to actually make decisions from. So then what we do is we get in a situation where
Avery tried to call.
where we spend 15 minutes discussing whether or not we should have an agent within 30 miles or 60 miles or in the same county. And the discussion is, I think it should be this far rather than having 3 property managers that people have talked to and discussed what their best practices are. Because some of the management companies may say, we don't service anybody within 20 miles. But without talking to the professionals that deal with this on a daily basis, and just saying, I think it should be 60 miles, I think it should be in the same county. There's no actual experience and data going into that decision. So to say, to put it in an ordinance and say that's the way we're gonna do it, there's no basis for that, and there's no, the unintended consequences from making a decision based on no experience can be very problematic. And we'll be back here in 5 years coming up with a different plan because that didn't work. So I think a lot of the problems we're having right now, some of this is, as far as I'm concerned, is we're doing it based on, I think, number of feet, property value. We don't have the actual data, and from just experience, would be good to have several Gary Nathans that we've talked to and discussed the property value and the actual data and numbers. We haven't done that, so to go from that, it's put it in numbers and expect a good outcome. It's tough to do. That's it. Fire discussion. We have, I have Northland Fire come and check on a yearly basis. Fire extinguishers, I don't know how many people in their regular house even do that. So, you know, as far as the properties that I have, I've had a lot of experience, short-term, long-term, different states, different counties. And I try to, some of the things we do are above and beyond what anyone would do with a long-term rental or a house. So there's some things we need to understand. We need to understand that when we make decisions based on I thinks rather than data and experience, we produce a document and unintended consequences that can be a problem. And I keep coming back to the number of feet of indicating, I think, okay. End of the day, I probably have like 30 seconds. End of the day, this document, you know, with the rest of what has been said, what Brittany said, is this document is actually, right now as we have it and putting these things in place, is going to end up causing more issues than not. And we don't have the data before, we don't have procedures in place to track the data now. So we have no way to know what's working and what's not. And that leads to being here doing the same thing, coming up with more rules in the future. So thank you.
All right, we will move to the folks that are online.
I have a hand raised from Curtis Kessler. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Curtis Kessler, Sawyer County, wouldn't say resident, but owner of property, Sawyer County. Just want to really quick mention that just finally learned about this committee, and it sounds like you guys have been going for, I think, October, and I've tried to listen to as many of your guys' meetings as possible since I've learned a month ago about them. Looks like you guys progressed a lot, and I guess what I'm trying to figure out or trying to understand is it seems like that there's a lot of regulation. There's 600, sounds like there's close to 600 properties that you guys are looking at for short-term rentals. And it sounds like there's a lot of problems with, let's say, 10% of those 600. And you're trying to regulate all the other properties with the 10% of the problem. So I'd like for you guys, at least wise, think about some of the big pictures that you're affecting with some of the folks that are totally compliant. A lot of things are doing great with the current inspections and everything's going just fine. No neighbor issues or anything like that. So those are the things I just wanted to ask you guys as a committee to look into as the big picture. More specifically, I guess, in regards to the defined occupancy of the residence, 2 persons per bedroom, and how that is connected and engineered for the septic capabilities. I understand that. But is the county looking into the guidance from the state on this and or any of those parameters around that as far as the guidance from the state also instead of just a county level? Because they may be coming up with some other ideas on how to pursue that. So I just want to know if you guys have looked into that. I feel like the committee is, like I said, trying to over-regulate 90% of the SRTs with this occupancy rule. The next thing I'm concerned about is the fees and the penalties being assessed to the property owners in lieu of the renters' actions. That I think that definitely is an overreach, and it's probably most likely unlawful. I don't know how you guys can, allow or cause an owner to be responsible for a renter that's causing some troubles on that. So I'd like to know how you guys are legally going to enforce that to the owner. An example would say, let's say in Hayward area, you have a apartment complex and somebody's lighting fireworks off in the parking lot. I don't think the city is going to go sue or, have action against the owner. It's actually the renter's situation, and should be up to the county or the city enforcement to come in there and take care of the problem makers. So we are engaged as far as ownership of property there. We are concerned and want to have a good relationship with our neighbors. So I just think that's a major overreach. Last but not least, regarding Matt Dale's resignation, I think I heard at the beginning of the meeting here, I would like for the committee to consider filling his position with somebody of the like, so that way there is actually representation of somebody with a property management background. So that way they have an understanding of what the committee is moving forward with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
I have another hand raised from Andy Vidal.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so I keep being troubled by kind of a clear bias I see when I read this. And there are changes going on, and some of them are positive, but there's just a lot of illegal tendencies as you're making this ordinance, like just a lot of them. And I know our lawyer brought up some, but it's just really clear there's a bias and an urge to punish anybody engaged in using short-term rental as a way to help pay their mortgage. Like, a lot of this is punitive, and it hands monopolies over to competitors such as hotels and certain kinds of resorts, just in the types of even putting 3 children in a room, which is legal all across the state of Wisconsin in any residence. But you're making it illegal in your ordinance just for this one subset of business. Yeah, it's suspicious, especially with some of the tendencies of the committee members to and comments that we've heard that have been punitive in nature towards anybody engaged in this business. It doesn't seem like it's to regulate. It seems like it's to crush the business and separate people engaged in it from their neighbors and stigmatize how they use their property to help pay mortgages, and separate us from law enforcement. Like this, if you read through this, what if you're a business operator? Like, a lot of people have LLCs in their homes and businesses out of their homes. There's a lot of comments and a lot of things in here that make it so we are afraid to call the police to help deal with any situation with our neighbors or with our guests. That's not a normal thing to do to landlords. It's really messed up. And it's here in your ordinance. Like, somebody thinking of how to benefit people involved in business that benefits the county. That's not what I get from reading this. That's not the kind of regulation. It doesn't seem like it's regulation. It seems like it's a punishment trying to crush anybody in the business. I invite you again to talk to us who are involved in this. So I didn't say, but I hold 2 short-term rental licenses in the county, and there are many of us who want good regulations, who want to deal with similar problems, but in ways that actually fit within the business and don't harm people. So just, yeah, it's getting annoying as I listen to meeting after meeting, just seeing this bent to the ordinance rather than working with us. So I just want to invite you guys again, please work with our community, work with people in the business to make this beneficial for everyone. It's just really clear reading this that that's not the intent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else online wishing to speak, please raise your hand. If you raise your hand, come to that, or just unmute yourself and start talking if you have public comment. Not seeing any hands raised or anyone unmuting themselves.
Okay, couple of general statements before we get going with the rest of our meeting here. First of all, I want to thank the public for their involvement in this process. Also want to let them know that this is not a final step. I mean, this is still work in progress. And the work that's gone into it to this point has been between the committee and the folks in the staff and the legal counsel to try to make sure that what we have here fits the spirit and the recommendations that were made by the committee. So as it goes forward, there will still be more opportunity to talk. If we get to that point of moving it forward today, which is on our agenda, possibly we'll have to wait and see how things work out on that, but just want to let everybody know it still isn't the end of the road. Also, wanted to make the committee aware that a letter was received by the county attorney from a group representing hosts, and that has been reviewed. So just as a point of reference. Okay. All right. Yeah, we have to look at the minutes from our last meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the February 29th meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those approved, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, now this, what we're gonna do, last meeting, we went through the entire ordinance and it took actually a couple hours. And we pointed out things that were problematic and that we next asked the folks to go back and look at. So what we're gonna do right now is just look at those items that the committee brought up.
I printed off the last agenda. Should I ask Lisa to print new ones and bring down for the audience? It's just the old copy. I can ask her to bring some down.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so now we're gonna look at those items that we highlighted from last month's meeting. And I'll ask you guys, staff, people that made those changes to speak to them, but I'll just go ahead and enumerate as we go. How's that?
That works.
Okay. All right, first one is 14-4-1 definitions. The definition of bedroom was changed.
And ultimately, we added a term or definition, I should say, for bedroom. Ultimately, bedroom isn't really defined anywhere as an actual bedroom. If we're using it here, is a term that's found in SPS 382 and 383 for the calculation of residential estimated wastewater flow. So it's the sizing capacity for the bedroom. So I mean, there was a comment that we heard online that that 3 kids couldn't be in a bedroom. That's not necessarily true. You could have 3 kids in a bedroom, but your sewer system sizing for the number of bedrooms would then dictate the number of occupants in the total staff. I do want to make one other comment real quick. I know Ms. Hessel had stated that she has to leave at 11 o'clock. If we, okay. I just want to reiterate that if we do lose Ms. Hessel, we will not have a forum for action items. So.
Okay, we'll try to move quickly then. Number 2, 14.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
this is Martin Hanson. I also have a previous commitment at 11:30.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, 14-4-8C, the owner's agent. This was also brought up in the comments about the 60-minute drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Can we go through all of them, or I mean, like, at the same time, or do you want to call on it individually?
Unless somebody has a question, let's go through, maybe go ahead and poll.
Yeah.
On motion, to move back, putting in.
Correct.
Somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just knowing that we did, listen and we did address, the language there to, it said that a person can respond within a 60-minute drive. And obviously, one of the conditions to APR property. There's no discussion.
Okay, number 3, which was 14-4-8E and 14-4-9E, 1 and 2. This was the 300 feet to 100 feet change.
Yeah, so we started looking at this one again. This one has always kind of been difficult. It started as a 300-foot perimeter, and that the owner would have to send out certified mail to everyone within 300 feet of the TRH property. Last meeting, we talked about potentially doing adjacent properties, and then also mailing that in with a kind of GIS TRH tracking system. When we start talking about adjacent, you know, it gets a little weird as far as across the town road. Is it immediately across the town road? Is it kitty corner across the town road? What if I'm on a corner lot? Is it the corner, the kitty corner across the corner that's part of an adjacent lot? So we ended up kind of going back and saying, you know, we should probably just have a foot perimeter for that. I think this committee has said, you know, multiple times that they want additional contact information for those nearby residents. So that's where we came up with a 100-foot perimeter from the TRH property for that additional contact information, kind of more of a meet in the middle approach. This was something that would need, you know, as part of the discussion action item included with these changes, would need to be solidified by this committee, because ultimately the committee had made a resolution initially for a 300-foot perimeter. 300 feet gets all of a sudden grabbed quite a few property owners that can be a little bit problematic to try to track down those addresses for those 300 feet people if you're specifically relying on that owner to get that information.
Okay, next is 14-4-9E, parent 4, owner responsibility to respond.
Your mic.
Oh, yeah, sorry, almost my other language, but we have changed that, whereas before it was a little complicated on how we wanted owners to respond. And so this kind of makes it realism here and just take on, before we had, it must respond, I believe, a certain time frame. And I guess it all came down kind of what is the complaint and what is the scenario that we're dealing with. So those will vary quite a bit. And to bother somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning for something that took place at, you know, 2 in the afternoon, we don't want to have that responsibility on the owners per se. So we address that with the issue.
The next one is 14-4-11A, parent 3. We clarified the verbiage on occupancy based on septic system capacity.
Yeah, we also added, you know, this is straight out of SPS 382 and 383 that, you know, design flow would be for residential sizing, which is size is 2 people per bedroom per the sewer system sizing. We also added the other language, unless otherwise approved by other technology methods for wastewater flow designs or estimates from the SPS. This would then cover if someone was able to make commercial sizing as part of the SPS requirements,
or was able to do water monitoring or water flow metering, but they would still need approval from the state. So this is an avenue where, you would have to get that further authorization through the SPS. There was an additional comment that was made before, where, you know, have we checked with state and, agencies as to, you know, what are their, suggestions or what are their recommendations? We have received very little from the state, and that is one of the challenging aspects of this. It's been a little bit of frustrating going back and forth with the SPS. Last we heard from DSPS is they were looking at removing their appendix portion of 383, which would be for that commercial sizing. And we've had several entities from the SPS say that it should be residential sizing, period. Now I would think that, you know, if this was to move forward, maybe there would be a larger backing, you know, from lobbyists or legislation that would end up doing some changes in that, but right now we're somewhat bound by those state codes and ordinances.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, next is 14-4-13, calls for service.
And before we get to calls for service, there was one other comment that was brought up during public comments, and I know we're not supposed to speak to those, but it is something where I do think it has some merit that we need to look at and address here, and that specifically is 14-412E, the minimum parking requirements. That does actually contradict itself. And it should be something that we can either wrap into potential changes now or certainly highlight for change later. Right now it says all guest parking must be contained on a TRH property or meet other local parking regulations for public parking. Then it further says parking may only occur in areas designated on the site plan. So maybe we have to go back in the site plan, which is further back in the ordinance or forward in the ordinance, and state that, you know, as part of their site plan, they could designate public parking areas as well. But something right there has some contradiction between itself. So I just want to put that out.
Okay, can you, if we can get to a point of a motion, can you make sure that you have that written down and clarified?
Yeah, I have it earmarked for sure. How we change it, I don't know if I can do that on the spot, but there is, yeah, some contradiction of the. I would make a motion to have staff go back and clarify the tension within the ordinance.
Bill, can I ask you to wait on that until we approve everything or disapprove of everything? Because it's a moot point if he has to change other things.
No, we can change, we can make a motion that we're doing, that's what we're saying right now. Is that the staff's gonna go back and take attention on
The agenda.
and so if we approve everything, then that will be done. He'll go back and do that. I don't have to look at him putting three words together.
Bill, could you
But that's
repeat your
not-
motion?
So I made a motion, put it on.
Could you repeat the full motion if we're gonna try to capture it?
Okay. What was your motion? Not sure. My motion was to change number 6, to have, you go back and clarify with the intent, to clarify the, tension within the ordinance having to do with, parking. Which is 14-4, or 12, 14.
I'll second that just to move it over.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those who approve, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And then, back to the 14-4-13 calls for service.
Yeah, there's C also, it's just not listed here, so that would be. I make a motion to discuss C as well as F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those approved, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Was that 14413?
13C, owner obligations.
Yeah, this was also mentioned earlier, and so we felt that the language here was a little strong, and that it would be hard for us to make sure that, the owner has that responsibility for their guest actions. And so we just want to make sure, I guess we changed the language to read an owner shall be responsible for the conduct of each person using the TR's property and left it at that, but not to have that liability, I guess, per se. So that was mentioned a couple of times earlier with the comment.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, now we'll move on to calls for service.
Also for service, that was a topic of discussion from the last meeting. I don't believe we actually changed any of the language other than to add, and it may not be correctly used here in parentheses, the affidavit, but calls for service, and that could really be regarding tourist rooming houses, or it could be in regards to the neighbors as well, as far as these complaints. And we want to make sure that when these complaints come through, that they're verified. Obviously, they're going to the sheriff's department. That's all recorded, be documented. But if we were to get some calls to our complaint line, or to myself or whoever, that people aren't just creating random calls, that these are significant calls and that they're going to be backed by affidavits. So we wanted to try and capture that in here, and whether that's done the correct way, or if there's other suggestions to include the word affidavit in this section or in someplace else in this document.
Question?
Yes, Martin.
So the word affidavit is in parentheses there is, I'd like some clarification. Does that mean someone making a complaint needs to go to a lawyer and get a notarized affidavit signed to submit to the county, or what is the logistical process implied by that term being in parentheses?
They would basically be, that situation would be taken to court, that they're swearing in that what they're saying in that, on that document is true. And that, and I guess I think it would help in a way that minimize the number of complaints and be only complaints that are justified, and not just, some of the ones that we often hear too is they're not so much more complaints, that they're more concerns. And that's part of the complication of my role right now, is trying to sort these out, and that's why we're looking at having some guidance here. And yes, there's more work to be done with policies after this, should this go through, and how to handle those types of situations. But again, we wanted to make sure that affidavits are used to document these concerns.
Thank you.
Sorry, Martin, I don't, as far as getting them verified or family, whatever, I guess I'm not familiar with that process, and whether that would be the case. It's not that difficult to make an affidavit, and it has nothing that says that it needs to be a notarized affidavit. We can have a form fillable affidavit available that someone can sign off on. So there's no requirements of notification, or that it needs to be drafted by an attorney at their expense. So
Just looking for a way to put some validity behind the complaints, because these are complaints that are being come.
correct.
Okay. I want to ask the committee if there's anything else that they feel that we discussed last time that we haven't brought up in this meeting. So
I just want to make a motion to consider, or to approve the changes and updates from the February 29th list, and also the additions made today.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, our next topic, number 8, consideration of motion on next step for the draft ordinance. So we, as a committee, can discuss if we think that this is far enough along to move to the jurisdiction, for them to continue to have ownership of the process.
I make a motion to send these forward to the inclusive jurisdiction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those approve, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we've got, next is number 9, a timeline of implementation. Yeah. Put together a little timeline. You want to give us a brief overview on that?
Yeah, so this process is long, and we started it back in about October of 2023. For us, it's going to be complicated. Should these ordinances go through implementing this process, and the licensing that would be required, not only for agent status, but also as a county license. And so there being work to do as to figure out the best approach to implement this. We are not trying to put the cart in front of the horse. We want to, instead of putting a lot of time and effort into what that will all look like, we want to see where this goes. But for those that have the document that was provided, kind of the timeline, should say, for example, if ordinances were to go through by, say, July 1st of this year, that first year, we're going to be have a lot of work in front of us to educate and get this information out to all of those that own tourist rooming houses. Bring them up to speed as to what kind of changes have been made, what our expectations are. Obviously, there'll be a lot back and forth with questions that they will have, but we would then try to implement this by July 1st of next year, just because that is our current licensing year for the agent program. So how that all unfolds exactly, I can't really say, because I just, again, don't want to put the cart in front of the horse and have put a lot of time and effort into that process yet. But so if that all were to go through, and then in basically July 1st of 2025, should we encounter a situation where tourist rooming house was not found in new ordinances, then at that point we'll be looking at enforcement, writing up the situation, and going from there. And then enforcement will be ongoing from 2025, July 1st, 2025.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to include the timeline with the ordinance changes when going to the committees of jurisdiction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next topic, public education website discussion action. Matt and the team have been working on a website and have gotten quite a good start on it, I think.
Yeah, thank you. This is something that we've been wanting to update anyways, regardless of where these ordinances may go. But just putting a little bit of time into it and taking into consideration some of the concerns. What I got here before me, again, this isn't been shared out. This is just kind of in the process right now. But this is kind of a packet that tourist rooming house owners would get, whether they're becoming a new owner or a new licensee, or will be available on our website that they could grab and just use as a refresher. It's everything they would basically one would need to know in order to get going, what are the requirements for a state license, where to go to get Department of Revenue tax ID information or seller's permit, looking at all the requirements for an inspection. Also, a lot of recommendations as well, based on, things that we've been talking about, the birds, things that may at one point been in the draft ordinances and taken out and said, no, that's more something that's a recommendation and not something that needs to be required. And so regarding like say fireplaces and fire extinguishers and stuff like that. So a lot of that information will go into this packet, including, so some information was given to us about campfires and that. What I have put together, campfire etiquette, document of the whole page that would be in this packet that could be posted into the facilities. And there could be more information that would be in this package as well, based on what we feel is, again, what would be recommended for guidance. And then again, the stuff that we go to require as a licensed facility for inspections. Other things that would be included, could possibly included were additional links or information that, such as information for lake associations, some of the voting requirements to click on DNR websites for fire restrictions. So the possibilities are endless. It's just a matter of what we feel is kind of needed in this, and then what is some of the supporting information that we can have available on the website that we could be kind of one-stop shop for.
Okay. Any comments from the committee regarding the education piece?
I think that the education piece is great. I just, I think we have to find a balance between the resident living next door and then the property rights of people renting out their homes. So I think we have a good balance. And I am excited that all of this discussion is moving forward to committees, because I think nothing is perfect and we can listen for a year, 2 years to everybody's complaints. I applaud you for trying to make an educational packet and a website. And I think we just need to, again, bring that forward with the committees of jurisdiction. So I make that motion.
Second, I'm the second guy.
We have a motion and a second. All those that approve, please say aye.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah.
Is the motion to accept the concept of a website or the draft as presented?
The concept.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, one last thing for this committee. I guess I need to ask the question if everybody here thinks that our work is completed. Yeah. So moved. Great job. Thank you, everyone on this committee, both the voting and the non-voting members. Thank you to the staff. Great job in getting something that we can actually move forward. And we'll leave it up to those committees. Thank you. We are now adjourned.